All right, welcome to this week's class or this week's session or this week's time together, everybody. I hope you're all well, whether you're here live or if you're watching on catch up. And I just would like to start by acknowledging that I'm broadcasting from the traditional lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung people and to pay my respects to their elders past and present and emerging, and any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here today or watching on catch up. So it's been a couple of weeks, and I discovered some old books. I was given back some old books that I didn't remember having. So I got a reading tonight from, this is one of my favourite books ever, Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And I was just flicking through it last night, and I really loved this and thought it's really applicable to our times. So, after I woke up to reality in 1986, I noticed many times how people in conversations, the media and books made statements such as, "There isn't enough understanding in the world. There's too much violence. We should love one another more." These were stories I used to believe too. They seemed sensitive, kind, and caring. But as I heard them, I noticed that believing them caused stress and that they didn't feel peaceful inside me. For instance, when I heard the story, "People should be more loving," the question would arise in me, can I absolutely know that that's true? Can I really know for myself, within myself, that people should be more loving? Even if the whole world tells me so, is it really true? And to my amazement, when I listened within myself, I saw that the world is what it is, nothing more, nothing less. Where reality is concerned, there is no what should be. There is only what is, just the way it is, right now. The truth is prior to every story, and every story prior to investigation prevents us from seeing what's true. I just want to read that last few lines again, once I find them. Where reality is concerned, there is no what should be. There is only what is, just the way it is right now. The truth is prior to every story, and every story prior to investigation prevents us from seeing what's true. So I want to talk on that just a little bit, and then we'll jump into a practice session and then leave some time at the end for questions. So I think this is really relevant to what's happening in the world at the moment. Is it's really easy to get seduced by the shoulds in our heads of what should or shouldn't be happening, what's good or bad, and what other people should or shouldn't be doing. And that those stories are seductive because they do seem true. And it does seem like people should be kind and people should be peaceful and people should be responsible. But reality is as it is right now. And the truth of what is prior to every story that we tell about it. So we touched on this last class, that once, as soon as we conceptualize something, as soon as we tell a story about it, as soon as the story arises, the thing is already finished. It's done, it's gone. And so when she says the truth is prior to every story, what I see or what I hear is that before, we want to get to this place of, before the story arises, what's there, what's real, what's in us prior to any story, any words about it. And don't get, if that's a little confusing, don't worry about it, because we'll step into that space in a moment. But the space that we're stepping into is there before the story arises and it's there after the story disappears. Just reality, just as it is. So I think it's it's just worth us remembering at the moment that there's still, we still have this choice at the moment of whether we argue with reality and get into a fight with it, or whether we notice what it's like, notice that it is as it is, and do the best we can within the circumstances we face right now. So I'm going to step into the practical session now, or in a moment's now. So if you find somewhere comfortable, if you prefer to turn your video off while we do this section, that's totally fine. And if you can either find somewhere to look where you won't be distracted, or close your eyes if you prefer. And I'm going to close my eyes and let's start by just finding our breath. And just noticing, what does it feel like to breathe in? And what does it feel like to breathe out? And as we feel the breath coming and going, as we notice the sensation of the air coming in, the air going out. As we notice the movement of the shoulders, the chest, stomach. We're stepping out of the world of interpretation and judgment and into this world of reality, of direct experience. And as we feel the breath, we can notice that this reality can't be held onto. We can't hold on to this breath. We experience it as it comes. And then very soon it's finished. And we just leave it. We just let it go. And then this out-breath comes. Body moves, sound, sensation, and then it's done. And then we feel this breath. So we're always on this razor's edge of now. Always feeling, experiencing life as it is. And when the breath goes, don't concern yourself with what the breath was like, whether it was deep or shallow. Don't concern yourself with whether you felt it or you got distracted. Just come back now to this breath. And as the breath comes into the body, Just notice how the body opens up, expands to make room for that. Notice how the body contracts again to push the air back out. And just allow your body to relax on that out breath as much as it wants to. Not trying to force it. Just allowing the shoulders to drop. Allowing the body to sink into the chair. Just letting go of any need to do anything just here and just now. We let go of the need to figure anything out, to categorize or understand, to plan for anything or learn from anything. And we just sit and we breathe. And from that place of observing, of watching, see if you can watch the thoughts that come and go. See if you can notice them. If you can allow them to come as they come, to stay as long as they stay, and to go when they go. And see if you can do that without getting caught up in them, without getting lost in them. And as we do this, we're not at all concerned with the content of those thoughts. You know, all of our waking lives, we're ordinarily focused on the stories that the voice in our heads is telling us. Its version of how it understands the world. But as we sit here now, we've got no interest in whether thoughts are positive or negative or neutral, or what they're about. We're just interested in the process. Interested in the process of watching and of learning about how this thinking process happens. So if you observe thoughts coming and going, you'll notice that you don't have any control over what comes. You notice thought arise. You don't create it. We're not thinking. We're being thought. Thoughts just come. And you'll notice that we don't control when they go. really clear example of that is when you're trying to remember something. Try to remember where you put something, trying to remember someone's name, and the thought just won't come. We can't drag it out when we want. It comes when it comes. And the same with intrusive thoughts that we might dislike. We can't get rid of them. We can't prevent them from coming. And if you watch what happens when we argue with those thoughts, when we try to control them and get rid of them, then that's what generates fear and anxiety and worry and struggle. Not the thoughts themselves. It's when we either believe in them, get lost in them, or get into an argument with them. So just observe that. And if an argument's happening inside you now, that's quite okay. Just watch the argument. Watch the mind arguing with itself. If you observe that, you'll see that the mind is saying something, first of all, and then the mind, that same voice is coming up on the other shoulder, so to speak, and telling you that that first statement is wrong, or that you shouldn't be thinking it, that you shouldn't be worrying about it. But if you watch, it's the same voice. Both shoulders, it's the same voice. And so what that voice seems to want from us is attention. It wants to be relevant. It wants to be listened to. And it will tell us whatever it needs to get that attention and be listened to. So as we watch now, we can know that that's the game that the voice is playing. Just wants attention. Tonight, we learn to give it attention by observing, by looking at it, by listening to it, from this position of groundedness in reality now. When we listen, we watch from there, then we can give thought attention without it creating suffering. So as you sit and you breathe and you watch those thoughts, watch the play of mind, see if you can just observe and enjoy it the way you might watch the waves breaking on the ocean, the clouds scudding across the sky. It's not the thoughts that cause us trouble, it's identifying with the thoughts, believing them to be true. Getting into an argument with them. But if we know what that voice wants, it's much easier to deal with. It's the world's first advertising executive. To that voice, any publicity, any attention is good attention. And so as we watch, you can notice that if you feel the breath, you're really feeling it. While you're feeling it, you don't get lost in thought. And conversely, when you're lost in thought, you don't feel the breath anymore. And so this is our focus. This is where we sit down and we rest. In this instant, noticing what's arising right now. This breath, this thought, this memory, this emotion, everything arising now. And anytime we step out of this instant, it's always into a story. It's always into a thought about something else. There are only two states of being for the human while we're in our day, in our waking hours. That we're either present, here, connected with this moment, or we're lost in thought. There doesn't seem to be any in between. So as we come back to the breath, feel the in-breath, feel the out-breath. And notice how the world just seems to slow down a little when we even take a little step out of thought. Even when we feel one breath or half a breath. And that slowing down and that space and that silence that can arise. It doesn't always, but it can. The mind tends to be fearful of that. Tends to be afraid of that space, of that silence. Again, because when we move into that, we're moving out of the slavery that is compulsive thinking. We're starting to break that addiction. Just feel your breath now. Take a moment to notice what else is happening inside your body. If there's any aches or pains or any emotions arising. Notice those physical sensations, the air temperature, clothing on your skin, body against the couch. And as we notice some or all of these phenomena, just ask yourself, who is it that's watching all this? Who or what is it that observes the coming and going of thought, of breath, of sound? And when we ask that question of who or what is it that observes, we just let that question sit without needing to answer it. If you just look for the answer in through observation in your experience. Notice that there's an awareness in the background that's watching everything that comes and goes. There's an awareness that sees thought and emotion and breath arising and disappearing. And you can sense that the awareness isn't concerned by the thoughts. It doesn't need things to be a certain way. It just watches, it just observes. And our true practice is to start to feel our way into that awareness. And you might ask yourself, who or what is watching from behind my eyes? You can take your attention there. And I've said before that we can't look at that awareness the way that we look at an object, because it is the looker. And the camera can't take a photo of itself. It can only take a photo of its reflection. So our practice is to, we start with this noticing, this concentration. You start by taking attention out of the thought stream and really investing it in the breath and the body, the now. And then we start to draw attention back to this awareness. And we start to sense ourselves as that awareness, as the watcher. And for me, this is true meditation. We're just sitting, knowing ourselves as that awareness and noticing what's arising from that place. We're settled back into that observing awareness. And when we do that, then all the problems of the human life, the problems that tie up so much thought and attention and energy, they almost seem to fade when we inhabit this space. When we know ourselves as this awareness and just look from there. Now, when I first heard this, it took probably at least 5 years to almost notice, to find this awareness. And I found it quite confusing. So if you're not aware of that, you're not noticing that in your experience, don't worry about it too much. Just keep feeling the breath, feeling the body, and keep introducing that question of who is it that's watching all this? Who's noticing all this? And just let the question sit, don't answer it. So we're moving through the 3 layers of practice in a way. We start by noticing, shifting from thinking to noticing, to experience. From there, we allow what is to be as it is. And from there, we start this inner inquiry into who or what am I? And we can just sit in that space and really just explore with our attention what is going on inside us. Who is it that watches all this? We don't need an answer in words. We can just spend some time exploring, just looking. Not to try to get somewhere, but just for the sake of noticing. And whenever a thought pulls you out of noticing, out of allowing, or out of this inquiry, this exploration, as soon as you notice, just bring your attention back. Feel the breath. Notice what's arising. And just let everything be as it is. And so this is what meditation is and mindfulness is. It's not about how you sit or having your legs crossed or having your eyes closed, anything like that. It's all about where you put your attention. And it's about moving from the hypnotized state. That's our starting point. To this state of noticing and allowing. And then into this curiosity about what is going on, who am I, what am I, and what's going on inside. And if we can approach that with the kind of the curiosity and the passion and the joy that we have when we're solving other types of puzzles or doing crosswords or trying to solve mysteries, we can have that spirit of curiosity and almost excitement about the unanswered question. And that's the kind of attitude we want to bring into our practice, is light, curious, joyful. And just wondering about what is going on in this place and what's going on inside me. So in a moment, I'm going to bring this guided session to an end and open up for questions. But just before we finish, just remember that wherever you are, over the next hour or day or week, whatever happens, whatever you're doing, that the breath remains with you always. We can always step back and observe our thoughts, sometimes harder than others. And that you are always there as this background awareness, watching what comes and goes. So in your own time, I'll just invite you to open your eyes. If the body wants to stretch, then it's always good. You can never stretch too much. Maybe you can. And just open up the floor to any questions that you might have, or comments or feedback. And everyone's on mute, so if you'd like to ask something, if you just take yourself off mute and then can fire away. Here we go.
I found it very peaceful, Ollie. It's nice, peaceful.
Oh, thanks, Lovelace.
Ollie, it's Walter here. Thanks very much.
Walter.
Thank you for that. I think I found it quite unsettling. I think because I think someone could have been smoking outside my window. So first of all, I was having an argument about whether or not I should close the window or just sit here and take it. Yeah. And then I didn't shut the window, and so I think what I was trying to do is sort of watch the feelings inside myself and where they were in my body, like maybe feelings of getting heated or angry or uncomfortable or but I don't know if you can speak to that. Is that, I want to sort of ask, maybe this is the wrong question, but I want to ask, is that what I'm supposed to do? Or what's the purpose of being this awareness? And yeah, and I think that's one bit I don't understand about Katie Byron. Sorry, I'm giving you a whole lot of questions in one go, but like, because we have to accept what is, doesn't mean we don't do anything to, like, we don't shut the window and we don't, if someone attacks us, we don't, that's an extreme example, but we don't fight back, or I guess I can't, maybe, yeah, anyway.
So there's a bit in there. You reminded me when you first started talking. You reminded me of I think it was 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about to move or not to move. You know, if you're uncomfortable or you're itchy or something. We were talking about should I move or shouldn't I, and the the debate and the distraction that can come out of that. And I think there's no should or shouldn't about, it's like closing your window is a great example, and it's a great one of things that come up when we're sitting. And really, if we look at it, the voice is using that smoke to get your attention and to pull you into a story about, and the story could be about how dare people smoke outside, or it could be about I should shut the window, no I shouldn't, what should I do. So I think that if as long as we're observing, and if we're getting lost in that story, we step back. And sometimes, you just got to shut the window, and that's okay. And sometimes you want to sit and say, oh, what happens if I don't shut the window? What's the voice going to do? So I think it's that, we have that kind of playful, curious attitude of there's not a right and a wrong, and we're not trying to do perfect practice or get somewhere. We're just running an experiment. Hey, what happens? What's going on today? What's inside me today? In terms of this, if I broadly grab the second part of your question, I think, sometimes we confuse taking action with thinking about things. And sometimes we kind of internally, we believe that I have to think about things and I have to have an opinion on things in order to take action. But we all do a bunch of things every day without really thinking about them, because they either feel good to us, or they just feels natural and it fits. And they're usually things that are, we might see as kind and as thoughtful and as in alignment with life. And usually the things that we do that aren't in alignment with life are usually the things where we're thinking about it a lot, and we're fearful of losing something, or we're trying to get something, or trying to avoid some other outcome. So I think it's worth just looking into our thoughts, interrogating our thoughts a little, and saying, do those thoughts contribute to improving my life? And some of them might, and we want to utilize them, and that's fine. But if they don't, then it's good that we can, what's helpful, that we can start to notice that and be aware of it. So, and I think, loving what is, or, accepting what is, it includes, and this is something spins people out, but it includes accepting the fact that I'm resisting what is right now. So if I'm in a fight with reality, then of course, then the voice is going to use that and say, oh, you're meant to accept what is. You're in a fight with reality. You're not supposed to do that, because then it gets more attention. So can we sit and go and even accept that? Hey, I'm not accepting this. I'm in a spiral right now. I'm getting lost in my thoughts. That's okay. Let's, what can we learn from that? What can we, how do we step out of that and observe it? So, that's why I like to say you can't do this wrong, because we get very fixated on right and wrong and should and shouldn't. But we can't do this wrong, where we're always just stepping back to noticing and learning a little bit more about ourselves and our internal experience. So that's a long answer, but you might have to watch it again on catch up. Does that make any sense though, Walter?
Yeah, thanks very much. I think I'll learn a little bit more each week.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't trust the voice if it says, you're not doing it right, you're not learning anything. That's just what it does. So the wind blows and the voice talks.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Yeah, smoke's a really good example of the of how you're affecting the breath, and you can't you kind of can't do anything about that unless you go and close the window, and then so you can relax and go back to your previous state.
Yeah, you can sit and notice the smell of smoke, or you can, if you don't want to breathe in smoke, you can go and shut the window. I mean, I'm just excited for you, Walter, that you're somewhere that's warm enough you can have a window open, because it's not happening here. But yeah, it's there's no right or wrong or good or bad, or we're not. There's no. We don't want to get extremist about it. But yeah, you can sit and notice, and it could be smoke, or it could be traffic noise, or it could be people, your neighbours. It could be the birds. The voice wants to categorize everything and say, this thing is good and peaceful and meditative because it's bird noise, and this thing is bad because it's traffic noise. But if we take away the story about it, then it's all just sound, sound coming and going. Yeah. What about, anyone else want to share a question or a query or an observation?
Can you hear me? Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Is that you, Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's probably a bit of a couple of questions. It's like, sometimes it feels like, well, three things. First one, when you say 5 years, it kind of feels like, 5 years. It's like, anyway, so there's that. And then there's like, sometimes it feels like I'm hardly breathing. It's like just this kind of quite shallow. And so then I think, well, maybe if I notice more breathing down on my stomach rather than up here. But yeah, so any observations about 5 years and barely breathing?
I'll start with 5 years, because I was reading something the other day, and it said it was about learning new skills, but it said, the critic in your head might say, well, how old will I be by the time I learn the piano? And the answer is the same age that you'll be if you don't. It's like, I think for me, I just say that because when I was listening to, and I still listen to lots of teaching, but I was listening to lots of Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about space consciousness, and he talks about awareness, and for years I was like, oh, I love this teaching, but what the hell is he talking about? What's this awareness? And then one day it was like, oh, it's actually like me. It's the thing that, whatever this is, that's looking, that's listening, that's noticing. And so it didn't, in a sense, probably didn't take, it's not like I tried for 5 years. It was just like, I didn't actually, it didn't click. A penny didn't drop until, and it dropped in an instant. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's what everyone's talking about. But for a long time, it was a little bit frustrating for me. And so I try to say that so that if people I don't want people to be sitting and going and thinking about it and going, what's this awareness? And what's he talking about? And how come I can't find it? It's like, if you're not noticing it, don't worry. Feel your breath. You know, go back to those other steps, and just, you know, just stay in this space and allow that noticing to unfold in its own time. So yeah, I think that's just kind of normalizing that for people, that if it's, you know, if you're not noticing it right now, that's okay. It's whatever, again, whatever's arising is arising. In terms of breath, you know, it's one of the reasons I really emphasize notice how your breath is, whereas, you know, you hear quite a lot of teaching that sort of says breathe this way, or breathe in for this many and breathe out for that many. And I'm not disagreeing with that, so try not to disagree with anything. But when I was first learning, I listened to some teaching like that, and I got really anxious about it, because I was like, oh, hang on, am I breathing deep enough? Maybe I should breathe deeper. And it took all my attention away from actually just noticing what's going on inside me, because I was so worried. You know, we're all worried when we start about getting it right, and fearful that we'll get it wrong. So yeah, I think your breath might change, it might not. That's okay. The point is not to have a particular state, it's to pay attention to whatever is. So yeah, it could be really shallow, and it's fine. We just notice. Could be really deep and slow, and we just notice that. There's no preference there. Does that make sense, Karen? Yeah. Yeah. There's another layer of thought that we can kind of take out of the equation, in a sense, just allowing. Thanks for that, Karen. That's a really good question. Really helpful.
You mentioned the question of investigating who you really are while you're breathing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, and the excitement or passion involved with investigating that, detecting what, I don't know if you can really ever get an answer to that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's something that you can't answer in, well, you can put a word to it, like you can just say awareness or something, but it's not really the answer, and it's not really going to satisfy. But what we want is to know and connect with that on a feeling level, or on a deeper level, and that's where these practices have kind of sprung from, is that that search for understanding. And that's I suppose the purpose behind saying don't answer the question, don't put a word to it, but just sit with that curiosity and allow your attention to explore that inner world and see what you notice. So yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe one day we'll all wake up to it and be like, yep, that's it. Or maybe not. But I think it's the journey and the exploration that's really enjoyable as well.
Ollie, it's Richard in Sheffield here.
Oh, hey Richard, how are you?
I was interested in this thing you've just said. What is it? You know, when you get into that space, when the narrative isn't there, the voice, the storyteller isn't there, and maybe it's returning to the child that you were when you were much, much younger, and you went out into the world, and you just had this incredible sense of wonder for everything, for the grass, for the trees, for the stones. If you went to the beach, you'd look at the pebbles, and it's like returning to that innocence where all the adult stories that you've absorbed, you've somehow managed to quiet, and you're back into this state of beauty, really.
Mm. Yeah, I think definitely there's a big element of that, and I've heard people talk about it as like a synthesis of, like when we're a child, we have that, and we kind of need looking after, and we don't, we're so we're so in that, and we just don't, we don't have the knowledge or the understanding of the world to be able to navigate it without a lot of help, and that there's, we almost go away from that, and we kind of leave home and get lost in the big wide world, and it's almost like this returning back to that, with all the, the skills and the ability to navigate and to contribute in a different way than we can when we're a child. And I really like that. And, if you look at the structure of stories, particularly like adventure stories, that's how they all work is, people start in their kind of little ordinary world where they're kind of doing their thing, and then they go out into this extraordinary world and learn a bunch of things, and then they bring that, there's this synthesis at the end of, they bring those gifts and those abilities back to the kind of, they return to where they started, but as different people. And so, yeah, I really like that analogy. And if you go outside and really in this state of noticing, and when, we can pull attention out of stories, it is really incredible how much beauty there is, even in just, cityscapes or wherever you are, that we just walk right past and don't notice on an everyday basis, because we're too caught up in that thought stream. So yeah, I think it is really rediscovering that innocence, Richard, and that's, in the passage, I know not everyone was here for the reading, but there's a line in that passage that was like, the truth is prior to every story. And it's like that experience is there before the stories arise and kind of cover it up. So yeah, absolutely. Love that analogy, Richard.
Thanks. That makes sense. Thanks very much, Ollie.
Oh, good. I never know if I'm making sense or not, so it's good to have that that reinforcement. All right. Well, would anyone else like to share or ask anything before we finish up for tonight?
Hi, Ollie. No, I probably can't add too much tonight. I'm sorry. I came in too late. Damn it. I set
Right,
the
Jen.
timer and everything, and then it doesn't go off. And anyway, but I did enjoy what I heard, and I enjoyed listening to the comments afterwards as well. So thank you, everybody, for that.
Very welcome.
It's all right.
Very welcome.
I'll be there next week on time.
Beautiful.
Okay. Thanks,
All
Ollie.
right. Well,
Bye for
thank
now.
you, everyone. Just before we do finish up, so yeah, I'll be back same time next week. So I think it's about 11:30 a.m. in the UK for anyone watching on YouTube or in sort of London anyway.
No,
Or
Ollie, it's
No.
not 11:30, it's 10:30 Greenwich.
Oh no.
At the moment, it's just after 11:30 Greenwich Mean Time.
Yeah. All right. So
I think,
10:30.
or British summertime, whatever it's called. But it starts. Your class starts here in Sheffield, in England, at 10:30 a.m.
All right. That's good to know, because I was telling people 11:30. So apologies anyone who's thought they were coming early and came late. That's my fault. And 7:30 in Melbourne time if you're in Australia. And if you're somewhere else in the world, you probably figure it out from there on a Wednesday. And that's about all. So thank you everyone for coming along. Feel free to email me if you're in the Facebook group. You can ask questions through there or message me through the week. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great week. Stay safe, look after yourselves, and remember to keep breathing.
Mm.